That sacrifice that you made, Lord, was almost enough. But when you rose, you finished it. And we are so glad that you are alive, you are here, and you are with us, God. And we stand on your word, God. We stand on your love and your grace. And Father, we open up to the word that you have for us this morning from your servant, Pastor Chris. We ask you right now to touch him and anoint his words, that he would bring exactly what you have for us this morning. And may we be the fertile ground to be able to receive exactly what you want us to hear. Amen.
It's good to see you all here today. It's good to be back with you. It's good to be back. We missed you. I did. I just want to say that right now. I missed you all. Glad to see you again. You've all been welcoming and hugs and prayers. Prayers were definitely felt while we were there. We can't tell you how much we appreciate that. And we're just excited to be back and to share the stories with you. But some things happened while we were gone. Let's see. Tori and Christine, where are you? Over there. They're back there with the baby. Very good. I found out just a little while ago that Patrick and Amanda Dobbs had their baby this weekend, so I don't know any of the details, but I'm excited to go to see them in a little bit and wish them the best. And I think we got one or two more babies not far away, so we're going to expand that nursery back there a little bit, I believe. So get it ready. And then what else happened? There was something big. Oh yeah, school started. How many are excited about that? How many are not excited? Is there something you just don't care? All right, well, good. Good that the routines are starting back. Summer is although it doesn't feel like it outside, but summer seems to be winding down and we'll get back to routines. Some of you said you watched our pictures on Facebook as we were in Malawi. You talked about how you couldn't wait to hear the stories, and we are anxious to share those stories with you. Believe me, but you're probably going to have to get in little bits at a time, because if we just flooded you with everything that we were excited to tell about, it would be overwhelming. And you'd probably say, okay, that's enough, and get bored. And they say you're never truly boring until you travel. And if that's the case, then we're going to be very boring. But we can't wait to share those stories with you as we go through the next few weeks. Hopefully tomorrow, this coming up week, you'll be able to go to our website, foundry.hnc.org. We're going to try to get a lot of those pictures posted on there, a lot of other ones that you probably haven't seen. Get those there so you can go through and look at them in advance if you'd like. Now, trying to figure out how to preach today was a bit challenging, because all these thoughts are racing through my head, and all these ordeals and things that we experienced, and wonderful things that we experienced through there, just trying to make sense of it and to come up with something that didn't just sound like I was a to all of you. That was the challenge this week, but I thought about it. We were traveling through Malawi, and we did a lot of bus riding, going from place to place, and as we were going along, we passed a lot of these villages. We got some pictures that will come up here in just a second of just some of the things we saw from the road, and while we were there, we just some of these we were able to go into places where people lived. And as we were driving down the bus one day, it was a particularly long trip, and I was sitting there listening to my iPod, and this song came on that some of you may know, some of you may be too young to remember, but John Mellencamp sang a song called Small Town. And this song came on my iPod as we were passing one of these villages. And I kind of laughed. I thought, I doubt the kind of small town John Mellencamp was singing was really this small. The words still seem to fit. I was born in a small town, probably died in a small town. Small towns were everywhere. Small villages everywhere. These people lived there. Now, I want to stop for a second and ask you, how many of you are either from or have ever lived in a small town? Okay, quite a few of you, small town. Yeah, I didn't. I was born here in the Nashville area, raised here in the Nashville area. It's not such a small town. Although, you know, I went to high school at Beach High School. How many know where Beach High School is? Some of you know where that is. At the time I was going there, it was about 15 minutes from the main road of Hendersonville. We thought we were small town. You know, when we played our crosstown rival, Hendersonville High School, in football or anything, they would refer to us as the Hicks, the Rednecks, you know, because we were so far out of town. And we prided ourselves on that. Yeah, that's right, we're the Rednecks, we're the Hicks. No, not even close. But after I began pastoral ministry, I went to serve in a town called Pulaski, Tennessee. You probably know where Pulaski is. Now that's a much smaller town. Much smaller. It's still bigger than some other places, but it's still a small town. But everybody knows everybody there. In fact, for me to go to the grocery store was about a 3-hour trip because you had people wanting to have conversations and stop and talk. It's a social event. It's a complete social event when you go to the grocery store or anything else. That year, Christmas rolled around, and with it came the Pulaski Christmas Parade. All right? The only type of parade I was familiar with was the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. Okay, you know, the celebrities and the big floats with all the flowers and the giant balloon animal or cartoon characters and all that stuff just float down. And I thought, what in the world is the big metropolis of Pulaski going to do that can beat with that? I just couldn't imagine it. And so I really didn't have much intention of going to this parade, but I was informed by some of my church members that I was expected to be there. They said, everyone will be there. You have to go. Everyone? Yeah, everyone. I had my doubts, but I said, all right, I'll go. So loaded up and got down Main Street there and got ready to have this parade. And they were right. Everybody in town showed up. Most of them were actually in the parade. I mean, you had all the high school sports teams, the cheerleaders, and all the high school clubs. You had the Little League sports teams. You had the mayor and the city council. You had the businesses were part of it. You had, you know, the important thing to remember is, you know, there were no giant inflatable cartoon characters. Most of the people were driving by with flatbed trucks with hay and straw and all that stuff in it. And kids were riding bicycles. There was a few of the fancy cars from the old car dealership going down the road. The homecoming court was in one of those, you know, they're all waving. And then I saw what was so interesting about the parade. Every vehicle or every transportation that went by, the people on it were giving out candy. Throwing out candy by the handfuls, just shoveling. And the kids that were not in the parade were just going nuts. Right? I mean, this is like Halloween on steroids. They're going around grabbing candy, shoving it in their pockets so they can't fit any more in their pockets. Then they're shoving it in their parents' pockets and mom's purse and everything until it's overflowing. And these floats were just going by, and everybody was tossing out all kinds of candy. Every kind of candy you think of was going out. And the local Kiwanis club came by, and I swear the woman just had a bucket. It was just throwing candy out everywhere, and kids were going nuts for this candy. And when the parade was over and everybody started kind of dissipating, going away, I looked down at the street and there's all this candy still just covering the road. And then after the parade was over and they opened the street back up to traffic and some cars started coming by and it was running over the candy and some birds were coming in, some squirrels were coming in to take whatever candy they could get and get out of the way. And all this candy was like, the next day I went by and there was still candy laying in the streets and the sun was out and it was melting the candy. Jolly Ranchers just all over the place melting to the pavement there. All of this candy gone to waste. Some of it found its purpose. Some of it found its intention. The kids' hands. The kids were taking it to enjoy it. The parents were able to enjoy it. But a lot of the candy just went to waste. Now I want to contrast that story with another one. While we were in Malawi, one of the places we visited was a small village with a farm. The farm was located right near the church building. They were growing maize and tomatoes and bananas and a few other crops. But when I say farm, I don't don't want you to get the wrong impression. Don't think of it as a farm you might see here, huge acres and acres and acres of land covered with crops. That's not, most people here would probably refer to this as a large garden. Okay? That's what we're talking about, a large garden, by American standards. But the impact it's having on this village is just huge. And it's certainly more than most of the other villages around them are able to have. And I wondered at it, as I was looking at it, why it wasn't bigger. Surely they needed more food than what this garden could grow. And I was talking to this guy named Lester Mahoney, who's the caretaker of the farm, and I asked him, do you have plans to make this any bigger? And he said, yeah, but there's some circumstances that are keeping it small at the moment. And one of the reasons was seed. There wasn't much available, and the seed is expensive. They needed to, some of them were harvesting the seeds from the food that they were growing to replant for next year. And he spoke about the care with which they had to plant each seed, because each seed was valuable. They couldn't afford to be wasteful with it. They needed to make sure each seed was planted in good soil and it was properly cared for. For them, every seed represented life. Not just the life of the plant, but life for the people of the village. It was not to be wasted. One of the amazing things about going to places like we were in Africa is how much life in Africa today is probably about as close as you can get to see what life was like in Jesus' day. You can see the markets and the way people go and they trade and they bargain for things and the way they interact with each other and the needs that are there and the way they talk to each other. It's probably fairly close to what it was like in Jesus' day. So it's not hard for me to imagine that seeds were very valuable to the farmers in Jesus' day also. And I was thinking about this on the long flight back from there. And I thought about this parable where Jesus describes a farmer who's going out and he's just slinging seed everywhere. He didn't care whether or not each seed found good soil. He threw seed in rocky soil. He threw it in the weeds. He threw it in thorns, hard soil, the pathways. He threw it everywhere. Some of it managed to find good soil. And I started thinking about the farmers themselves who were listening to this story. As people gathered around Jesus to listen to him tell this parable. And I thought about the farmers who might have been in the group and how hard it was probably for them to hear Jesus talking about this. You know how when you have experienced something and you hear somebody else talking about it, or you see something, the best way I can describe it is I told you about how I served on submarines for a few years back when I was in the Navy. And when I was there was a movie coming out called Crimson Tide. Some of you may remember. Awful name. Terrible name. But, it was about the USS Alabama, which was a submarine very close to the one I was in, very similar. And it was supposedly this incredible storyline, and so me and some of my buddies, we couldn't wait for this movie to come out. We were anxious. We planned the big night when it came out, and we all ran into the theater and got down close and just ready for this, anticipating it. And 10 minutes into the movie, we were ready to get up and leave. It was horrible. I mean, it was just so unrealistic. It had nothing was like it should have been. It just kind of ruined the experience. Halfway through the movie, we were laughing hysterically at it, and probably ruined the movie experience for everybody sitting around us. Because we were like, yeah, right, whatever, and other choice words that say were sometimes used. So I wonder if the farmers that were listening to Jesus talk about this were just saying, right, no way. This guy's crazy. You can't throw seed around like that. Nobody does. That's unrealistic. I wonder if they were even able to hear the parable Jesus was telling because they were so caught up in the details of the seed that was being wasted. But Jesus goes on and tells us that the seed represents God's word, and God is the farmer. So here's God out throwing around his teachings. He's out throwing his promises, his truth, his grace, his mercy. He's throwing his love out everywhere. And he's not just going to the churches and the synagogues to plant a seed where you think the good soil will be found. He's throwing it around everywhere. Wherever there are people hurting, wherever there's people suffering, wherever people are sick, wherever people are dying, wherever, in whatever circumstances they find themselves in, God is making sure His grace and His love are available. And it was there that His seed was finding good soil. It wasn't in the church. He already threw some of the seed toward the church in Jesus' day, but what had they done with it? They rejected it. The priests, the religious leaders, the synagogues, the so-called religious people had mostly rejected it. It turns out that the church was actually rocky soil, full of prejudice. And the people had other things on their minds, and their priorities were in other places. So the seed was choked out by the thorns. Does that still happen today? Yeah. But some of the seed fell and grew in places no one expected. A Roman centurion, tax collectors, fishermen, shepherds, prostitutes, the outcasts, the rejects. Turns out they were the good soil. They were the soil receiving the seed and making something happen with it. God's kingdom was growing in places where no one would have given it a chance. And the church still struggles with this today. Churches still direct much of their effort and resources trying to be choosy about who they want to invite and who they want to welcome. Do we really want to invite the poor, the dirty, the needy, the criminals? Surely there are better places that we can spend our resources. You know, it was amazing to me that some of the people I'm very close to, that their thoughts about me going to Africa was that it was a waste of time and resources. Oh, they're poor, they're sick, they're different, they're too needy. We need to look after our own people first, they said. Did you know that the church is growing faster in Africa than anywhere else in the world? The fruit that's being produced in Africa has grown faster than anywhere else in the world. And I can tell you that I met people in Fort Malawi with more faith than I have ever had in my life. I can only hope someday to get to where they are. They may be poor in clean water, they may be poor in food and health and money, but they're richer in faith and in spirit than most Americans I know because all they have is God. They don't have the distractions, the weeds that choke us out. And I was humbled when I spoke with Daniel Mahoney, who's the district superintendent, the pastor in charge of that area. I was humbled when I found out most of the pastors don't receive any type of salary for their work. But that's all they do, is care for those congregations. They depend completely on faith that they will receive enough gifts here and there, enough chickens, goats, whatever the people can give them, crops, some money. They're hoping that they can get enough of that to survive. Most of them are an average pastoring 8 churches apiece. They depend completely on faith. I'm sure Jesus got a lot of strange looks when he chose to hang out with the crowd of misfits that he did. But I also imagine Jesus, I don't think he looked around and said, how did I get stuck with this crowd? I don't think he looked around and said, man, I got all the losers. I got the ones that nobody else wants. I don't think that's how he looked at it. I think he looked around and said, these are the ones. These are the ones that the seed is growing in. These are the ones that are producing fruit. These are the ones that the seed has had an effect on their hearts and their lives. Remember the woman who approached Jesus and anointed his feet with oil over tears and dried them with her hair. Remember the tax collectors who gave up all their wealth and gave up their positions of power to follow Jesus. These are the ones Jesus is seeing, the seed who's fruit. And look at the people out there. Today when you leave here and you go to your restaurants, and you go to Walmart or Kroger or wherever it is you go, look at the people. What kind of soil do you see out there today? What kind of soil are you seeing? What can we do to help that soil be ready to receive? Do you ever wonder how we can remove the rocks and the thorns? And I'm sure you can come up with many ideas, but the most important thing we can do is to first ask ourselves, how much fruit is the Word producing in our lives? How much fruit is the Word producing in your life? Then we ask ourselves, how are we sowing the seed? Am I like the people in the parable? Am I like the people in the parade? Let's put it that way. Am I just shoveling God's grace out to everybody? Am I shoveling the seed out as fast as I can? Or am I like the farmer and clutching it and making sure that it has to be somewhere valuable before I can plant it? Are we like the farmer who's going out and throwing seed everywhere he goes? He doesn't care if the soil is good or bad. He just throws the seed just in case that soil is receptive. He's like the people in that parade, just throwing candy everywhere, extravagantly. Generosity. Even wasteful. He was reckless, irresponsible, and out of control, yet he was bold and fearless. And I think that's why Jesus is telling this parable. He wants the same from us. He wants us to throw the seeds of His grace and mercy, seeds of hope and seeds of love, freely, everywhere we go. He wants us to be reckless with our faith. Here's one thing that I've learned over the course of my ministry, is that I'm not smart enough to determine the condition of someone else's soul. Not smart enough. Can't do it. I tried for a long time, and I couldn't figure out why I wasn't getting anywhere. I can't look at a person to see if their heart is truly hard, or if it's rocky, or full of thorns, or if it's open. Have you ever written someone off as someone who can't possibly change or receive God's Word? We've all done it. We've all read it before. Maybe we need to take time this week to pray for their hearts to be open. It may take more than a week. It might take months. It might take years. Patience. Pray that God will give you the boldness to share with them. Ask God what kind of actions of love and service that you can do for them to share with them. And I want to thank God right now for the people who ministered to me through my life, that they didn't try to determine what kind of soil I was. Because if they had, they probably wouldn't even try. I remember a man named Lester Burkhart who just threw seed at me and let God's grace do the rest. In fact, Lester commented on one of the pictures we posted on Facebook while we were in Malawi. He made a comment on there. He said, Chris, how awesome. This is so special. The first time I met you, I never would have dreamed you would be here in your life. He's right. No one could have. Here's another truth I've realized in my life. When I'm reckless with generosity, it never, ever runs out. That's true whether I'm giving my money, my time, my talents, and especially love. God's grace simply does not run out. The greatest example of this is in Jesus. He's the most powerful example of reckless love, reckless generosity, reckless service, reckless relationships, reckless prayers. There is no other example in Jesus. How can you be more reckless? you be more reckless with your faith? How can you be more reckless with God's love and with His grace and mercy? How can you go around showing the seed to anybody and everybody that you come in contact with? And finally, I want to say that maybe some of you have felt like that you're not good soil. Some of you feel like I'm not good soil. I'm not worthy to receive the seed. I'm not worthy to receive God's love. The good news is that Jesus is very reckless with His grace, and He gives it generously to anyone who simply asks for it. It doesn't matter what you've done. It doesn't matter where you've been. It doesn't matter. God is reckless enough with His grace. He will extend it to you no matter what. If you will simply ask for it. Simply reach it. He's already throwing it at you. Just being here this morning, God is shoveling it towards you. Will you let it grow? Will you receive it? Will you take it in your heart and just let it grow? Look around you. All these people in this room right here are here to help nurture that, to help you understand it, to help you learn, to help you grow, so that you can get taller and get stronger in your faith. That's what we're here for. That's why we come together. That's what fusion groups are for. We're here to help. You don't have to do it by yourself. Just be ready to receive. No matter who you are, be ready to receive. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. It was in that reckless love that God